This episode was filmed before a live studio audience.
It still doesn't work.
That totally works.
Hey, welcome back to Even More Mashed Up. We are the pop culture podcast that talks about all things, well, pop culture. I'm Alan.
And I'm Patrick, and I thought that opening totally worked.
Second time you thought it really worked.
Yes.
Maybe listeners will message in and let us know that it worked this time.
I think Ed will appreciate it.
He might be old enough to.
He's of our demographic.
Certain kind of age.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. Men of a certain age. Wasn't that a show?
Was it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it was.
Well,
It was a sitcom for a little while.
This is only two angry men.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today, did you introduce yourself, by the way?
I said I'm Patrick.
Okay. Did you say what we're talking about today?
No.
So is it a grab bag?
Yes, it's a summer grab bag.
Is it a lightning round?
No, I don't think it's a lightning. I like summer grab bag.
We got a lot to cover.
We do have a lot to cover.
We don't have a lot of time.
You know, I'm assuming
Yes.
this was your secret plan all along to derail #summer season.
Oh, absolutely. Because what I did was I worked behind the scenes to pull some strings and get Zach 3 jobs to work this summer. And then I planned several prolonged family vacations for him, which I hope you appreciated, Zach.
Thank you.
Don't forget your own prolonged family vacations.
That's true. We did go out of town twice.
Yes.
Which is, I know, quite a sin for you.
For a prolonged period of time.
Just a week each.
Yeah. No, it's clear. I mean, you orchestrated this. You clearly orchestrated the draft of the MCU. Like, clearly you guys were in shenanigans together.
Here's the thing with a draft.
So
you're going to get upset no matter what.
That's not
If
true.
people take it seriously, you get upset. If people make a little fun with it, you get upset.
No.
Like you did with D&D.
You do not like drafts.
So far, I have not had the greatest of experiences with drafts.
Yeah. Oh, and D&D. Like, you're not a big D&D guy either.
Yeah, I didn't have a great experience with that either.
No. Just a list of not great experiences for you.
But not today.
No.
Today's the summer movie grab bag.
And we might mention that in addition to Zach being here,
Yes.
who I think we've heard already,
Yes.
we do have a studio audience,
I
thus
believe it.
explaining your line.
Yeah. I thought the line was kind of self-explanatory.
Well, we haven't talked about how there'd be anybody in the studio yet, because Hope is here today.
Yes.
Deprived of a microphone. You can't really yell, I think, from off mic. I don't know. Maybe Zach is capturing all of that.
I don't know.
But
They
Yeah.
can imagine it.
You know,
hello.
Zach, I'm not sure I've seen that shade of red on Zach's face.
Hello. Or Hope.
Ah.
Hello. So
Yes.
we have invited Hope to come
Yes.
and grab a mic if she has anything to
And,
say.
yes, if you know she disagrees vehemently
Well,
with
we are
anything.
the first grab out of the bag.
Yes.
That's probably not the best way to phrase it.
Yeah.
The first subject that we're going to talk about today
Yeah.
is the Barbie movie.
The Barbie movie, yes.
And
you know what I
maybe-
have? You know what I
maybe
have for the Barbie
having,
movie?
a female voice.
Not unmiked.
Right. Oh, it's
We'll have a female voice in the room, but
right.
we're not going to make sure.
completely unheard, which
Yeah,
is
you can't
really,
hear
if you think about it. Now, in our defense, we have each offered Hope the opportunity to come to the microphone. If she has
Actually, I
something.
didn't.
Okay, Patrick did not. Yeah,
Just
but
to
Zach
be clear.
did, and
So
I
you
did.
wanted that on record.
Yeah, I just well, you know, in the
Somebody-
interest of accuracy.
Somebody needs to represent the patriarchy,
Exactly.
and that will be Patrick.
And I've got
new
lots of
nickname,
Ketter
Patriarchal Pat.
Let's not do
Great
that.
theme song.
It's the patriarchy.
He's patriarchal,
No, that
and
doesn't.
he's
yeah,
Pat.
That doesn't work.
He's patriarchal Pat.
That doesn't work.
To the theme of like Spider-Man.
It's patriarch. It's the patriarchy.
The patriarchy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that works.
I'm glad
Hey,
that you like it. Like you,
I've got some
you-
fun facts. Who doesn't love
God.
fun facts?
Now
So
I
here we go.
remember why I did all those machinations behind the
Yeah.
scenes not to do this. show
So,
all
fun
summer.
fact number 1:
There's no stopping him. Just like a
Barbie just became
Barbie.
Warner Brothers' highest ever domestic grossing film.
highest ever domestic grossing film.
Yes.
Right?
What film did it have to surpass to achieve this distinction?
So now I need to name films that Warner's have made.
Yes,
So they've made a bunch of DC stuff, right?
they have.
So
You would
is
not
it
be
the-
on the wrong track in
Is
that
it the
direction.
Flash?
It is not the Flash.
Damn it. They didn't do the Dark Knight stuff, did
Yes,
they?
they did.
Is it the Dark Knight?
It is the Dark Knight, yes.
I've never been this good at this quiz before.
Yes. So, with
Thank
that,
you, thank
where does it put it on the rankings of domestic gross all time?
Who?
Barbie.
Well, so it's the best Warner Brothers.
It's
So
the
you're
West
saying
Warner
there might
Brothers.
be others are better. So Avatar probably outdid it. Titanic maybe outdid it. Am I right so far?
With Avatar, I don't know about Titanic.
Okay, so I'm going to say fifth.
No, way too high.
For Warner Brothers?
Yes.
You think like Gold Diggers of 33 must have done big bank. 12th?
You're getting closer.
15th?
Closer.
18th?
Too far.
God, this is the worst. 16?
16. It's 16. Yes, right behind the live-action Lion King remake.
You do know there's always a moment in the show where I just list numbers.
Thankfully, it's only a
Patrick
couple
Films.
million behind that, and it's expected to make like 17 to 20 million this weekend. So it'll be moving past
Did
that.
I just hear you say that Barbie has legs?
I did not say that. No.
Felt like that's what you were.
No.
That's how the patriarchy codes its language.
That's what someone who
like
is
not
imbued in the patriarchy would infer from what I said.
Exactly. Nobody talks about legs like you do. Almost every week when we talk about a movie, you're talking about legs.
Okay. Fun fact number 2.
And on we go.
According to thenumbers.com.
Is this so you've now found another free website to go to?
Barbie is the highest grossing comedy in the U.S. of all time.
The highest grossing comedy.
Yes. Can you guess what film it surpassed to reach this mark?
Highest grossing comedy. Is it a Will Ferrell film?
No.
All right.
You're going to have to go back a bit.
To the 80s?
I think so. 80s or 90s?
Is it a Ben Stiller film?
No.
Is it a Adam Sandler film?
No.
I seemed like it could have been.
You've got the idea in that it is a vehicle for a particular star.
Talk about Barbie.
But you're thinking you're going way too. You're going way too.
I don't know if Zach picked that up, but hopefully we should actually be talking about.
You're going way
Barbie.
too Saturday Night Live. We are talking about Barbie. In the context of fun facts.
I don't know. Who is it?
Home Alone.
Oh,
yes.
That kind of makes sense. I guess.
Which keep in mind, Barbie at the time that I put this together has made $540 million in the U.S. Home Alone, which is number 2, is $285. Like Barbie shattered the record.
All right.
So many dollars.
But then inflation.
This is not adjusted.
Is that an adjusted?
It is not adjusted. So, fun fact number 2, or number 3.
I know we're already on number 3.
Yep.
This is the last of the Barbie ones, though.
Okay.
So
Implying there's more.
Right.
Yes.
None of which are actually about Barbie.
Barbie
yes, let's
is also the number 1 top film based on a toy worldwide.
Number 1 top film based on a toy worldwide.
It has earned $1.2 billion so far in the world.
Toy Story.
Can you guess the number 2 film?
I just did.
You are wrong.
Toy Story 2.
Also wrong.
Toy Story 3.
Wrong.
4?
Wrong.
Okay, I think that's all the Toy Stories I've got.
Yes, that is.
Is there a G.I. Joe movie?
There is. Wrong.
Good guess. I like it.
What would be the toy?
I don't know. I was thinking like He-Man, but I think that was a comic first, right?
Yeah. It was. I think it was the cartoon first.
I can't remember what it was first.
So, I don't know.
It's so obvious when you think about it.
Okay, Transformers.
No. It's the Lego movie.
Are you serious?
Which, again, keep in mind, Barbie is number 1 at 1.2. Lego, number 2, is less than half of that at 468.
Barbie has done really well.
Barbie has done incredibly well.
It suggests we ought to talk about it.
Yes, that was what I was trying to lead up to.
Oh, I see.
By talking about the numbers.
Just setting the stage.
Putting it in historical... You love historical context. This is historical context.
No, it's not really historical context.
Historical
it's
context.
More numerical trivia.
Yeah, historical context. I mean, you just replace dollars, replace dates with dollars, and it's basically history. There's a big battle in Barbie. There's your war. It's like everything you love.
Everything a historian needs.
Yeah,
that's right.
Dates
and wars. You could get your degree in
dates
Barbie.
And wars.
Yeah. All right. So can I say I love Greta Gerwig?
Yes.
Just in general. You've not seen Lady Bird.
I have not. I have only.
You saw Little Women, right?
I think I've only seen White Noise of Greta Gerwig's work.
You didn't see Little Women?
No, I did not see Little Women.
You didn't see Frances Ha?
No.
Okay. Wow. So anyway, I guess that's all we'll talk about Greta Gerwig then.
Well, we could talk about her in relationship to Barbie.
We could do that. I
mean, there has been a request for us to actually talk about Barbie and not say other films.
I'm talking about Greta Gerwig.
The request was to talk about Barbie.
Greta Gerwig.
Just saying, we're still not fulfilling what the audience is asking.
You know who made the film, right? How do we talk about Barbie without talking about Greta
Well, but
Gerwig?
you wanted to talk about, like, Lady Bird and whatnot.
No.
You brought up Lady Bird. That's not Barbie.
Okay. I've never... I didn't know what to expect from Gerwig in terms of a comedy. Because most of her stuff isn't as broadly comic as this film was. I thought this film was actually really funny. Before we get to the other important stuff of it, it was actually funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't laughed out loud at a movie so much in a long time.
For me, the last time I laughed this much at a movie was Aquaman.
But that was unintentional.
No. Oh, of course.
Yeah.
But I still laughed out loud.
The last time you laughed at a movie that was intentionally trying to make you laugh.
Wow. I don't laugh a lot when I
go to the theater. I don't go see a lot of comedies.
So I remember laughing out loud during The Other Guys.
Okay.
It's got some moments.
Not Daddy's Home?
Daddy's Home 2. That would probably be the last one. Classic. The argument over the thermostat is just...
Thermostat.
It's evergreen.
So good.
Always good.
It'll never go
not
out of
Barbie.
style.
Daddy's Home, not Barbie.
So I thought this film, speaking of actors who are in the Barbie movie, I guess I have to use Barbie in every sentence at this point.
That would help.
Well, in the Barbie movie, Will Ferrell appears.
He does.
And the Barbie movie treats Will Ferrell differently than Will Ferrell is typically presented, in that he generally plays very, very broad characters. But in this film, I felt she reined him in a little bit in a way that actually made him even more effective. One of my concerns about the movie is that he would be...
That he would sort of take
totally
it over.
Will Ferrell about it. And I'm not saying she erased Will Ferrell, but in Barbie there is kind of a taming of Will Ferrell that I thought made him even kind of funnier in a way. Okay. Nothing on that.
I just find it interesting the first thing you want to talk about in the Barbie movie is Will Ferrell.
Well, I want to talk about Greta. I want to talk about Greta Gerwig, a real world woman.
Well, there you go.
You took that right off the table. You
well,
said
no, you were bringing up all of her other
movie,
movies.
right?
You can talk about her in the context of
I actually
this
wanted
movie.
to talk about a real woman.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I guess I shouldn't talk about Ryan Gosling then. How did you feel about Barbie's performance?
What do you mean Barbie's performance? You mean all of them, or Margot Robbie in particular?
Well, we could start there.
Oh, I thought they were all great. I don't know. I feel like you're setting me up for something.
No, there's some substance. You wanted to talk about Barbie,
the
and
movie,
women.
Yes.
So I trying to give you something.
Well, it's not me that wanted to talk about it. It was Hope that wanted us to talk about it.
So you don't want to talk
no,
about
I do want
women
to talk
or
about
Barbie.
It. No, I do want to talk about it.
Your position is literally changing.
I will say, my mom did say when she watched the movie,
yes,
she played with a lot of the Barbies when she was younger and everything. And she said of how accurate all of the outfits were to real things that came out. She said it was such a nostalgia hit for her.
They did.
They did a really good job with that.
And the way they emphasize sort of the selling of Barbie and the way outfits are kind of like thrown out and then they pause in midair, and it was really well done. Yeah. So let's talk about the movie's politics and activism.
Okay.
How'd you feel about it?
How do I want to say this? Within what it is doing, it is excellent.
Okay. What is it doing?
Well,
what is it?
If I do have one critique of the film,
why'd you put one critique in quotes? Air quotes.
Yeah,
you seem very uncomfortable to criticize Barbie.
No, I do. Well, I do have I have a critique in the sense that, in terms of the film's feminism, I think the film's feminism is very much based in a sort of white heterosexual feminism. It's not particularly intersectional. Now, it's not necessarily trying to be. Right. I think it does a lot of important work within what it's doing, but I think we do need to make clear, for me, there are ways in which that it's not as intersectional or as inclusive as it maybe could have been.
And thus maybe not as radical as it might have been. But it was interesting. I listened to the Film Spotting podcast, and it's two white guys who were middle-aged talking about films.
Well, they've got no hope of success.
No. They have a huge... they're actually doing quite well. Okay. I think they would kind of look down upon us.
Well, we wouldn't.
But as they talked about, in particular, there's the real-world mom's speech in the middle of the film about what it is to be a woman.
Yes.
And they're both, I would say, fairly progressive in the way they present themselves and talk about film. And their complaint sort of back and forth was... There was nothing in that speech that was radical. There was nothing in that speech that I haven't heard before. And it got me thinking about radicalism in film. Because I don't completely disagree with that. Much of what I had heard, like I had heard women say to me before, never in 1-2 minute monologue, but over the course of my life, I've heard all of those things articulated to me about what it means to be a woman and the contradictions and the complications and the unfairness thereof. But I think for a lot of people going to see the movie, and it's made a ton of money, so a lot of people have gone to see the movie, including some conservatives, not all of whom have stormed out after the first 5 minutes, apparently. I think there was stuff in that speech that people are not aware of, that we might say it's not radical enough, especially from an academic perspective where maybe we've thought through these issues more than other people have. But I thought, my guess is a lot of people that went to that movie were surprised, at least in part, by parts of those monologues. And I think, I know I'm not supposed to talk about Greta Gerwig, but I find it very interesting that she chose to take on Barbie, which is clearly a huge challenge. It's a movie that's supposedly going to take on the patriarchy and capitalism through the vehicle of a Mattel-owned doll that kind of embodies patriarchy and capitalism. And so there is, I think, and this is one of the reasons I think I admire the film maybe more than some people do, that she took on a really, really difficult task. Like threading that needle in a way that's going to please radical feminists, you know, middle-of-the-road feminists and people who don't consider themselves feminists, right? Making a movie that kind of can speak to those different kind of constituencies in a capitalist economy. I just think it was a courageous kind of thing for her to take on.
Well, I mean, you know, in part for me, the film's feminism is kind of already limited by the fact it's a Barbie film. There's only so much you can do with Barbie because of what you just said, the way in which that she's historically sort of,
and I think Gerwig knew
framed
that.
in
Like
terms
she had to know that,
both
right?
capitalism and feminism.
Yeah.
I think the issue for me is more in terms of not so much that the feminism isn't radical enough, but in terms of how the film defines woman. It defines woman, and I think this is fair to say about America Ferrera's speech. Yeah, it defines woman in ways that's very consistent with a white heterosexual feminism. And even though we do have Issa Rae as President Barbie, right? We do have Alexandra Shipp as, I think it's writer Barbie. We have the Dr. Barbie, that's a transgender actor. There isn't really anything that speaks to the experiences of Black and transgender women, right? As unique or different. Like,
so you feel as if some of those other Barbies are a little bit tokenistic?
Yeah, I mean,
there's this kind of quick inclusion that's meant to kind of suggest maybe a broader message than the film actually delivers.
Yeah, I mean, speech. Yeah, I think that for me, and I would throw America Ferrera in there as well. You know, that there, it kind of reminded me as I was putting together my notes, the first thing that popped into my mind was kind of Super Friends, in that you have a lot of kind of representation, but on somewhat of a fairly superficial level.
Right. So, but it's not that the mother's monologue doesn't speak to all women in some ways, but it's that it doesn't speak specifically to unique intersectional experiences.
I think there's a critique that can be made of the film that the film, how do I want to say it? I mean, that when it speaks to all women, its notion of women is somewhat limited. Yeah. Because again, I mean, this is the issue with you know, sort of second wave feminism in general, was, you know, the critique the third wave feminism made that you know, non-white and, you know, third world, you know, international women sort of made the point of your definition of women does not really include us. I think Barbie kind of falls into a little bit of that second wave feminism in terms of it's very much based. Now, not to say that it's not doing important work in that, but I think we need to recognize that there are, you know, when we celebrate what Barbie is doing in terms of women, it's doing it for a certain definition of women that doesn't include necessarily everyone's experience.
And I think that's a fair critique. It's making the film that speaks to everyone. Like, you almost need a sequel. It would be great to see a third wave
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Not that I want a sequel. Like we don't need sequels.
And part of it too is there's only so much you're going to be able to do, as you kind of said, when Barbie is the focus. That I think some of this is just the nature of Barbie herself.
Well, and it's grounded in a capitalism that is always trying to commodify feminism or the civil rights movement or Black Lives Matter or any kind of activism. Right. One of the real challenges of activism in a capitalist system is how do you keep it from being co-opted by the system.
Yeah, and you know, there are ways in which that I'm sure America Ferrera's speech and the monologues speak to the experiences of a great deal of women.
Right.
But there are also experiences of women that are left out of that speech.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to articulate.
Kind of the point that I made is that.
Yeah,
and not to, you know, because I think what the film does in what it can do.
Right,
is excellent, and clearly the way the film has resonated is you know, speaking to any number of audiences. But I think there are ways in which there's moments where I was like, I could have seen the film perhaps doing a little bit more.
Yeah. Can I say two things I liked about it in addition to that?
Sure.
That kind of spin off of maybe what you're saying. One is, I think the way that it explored mothers and daughters was really worth doing, and I think Hope and Vicky, when they went to see the movie, found the movie like very meaningful in that kind of, you know, daughters growing up kind of way. The second thing that I found really interesting about the movie, which is not about feminism, so if you want to talk more about feminism, we can. But what I found really interesting was the way in which the movie wrestles with the meaning of popular culture, sort of writ large. I think in many ways Gerwig is wrestling with what we wrestle with in our book. And I don't know if listeners are aware, but we did co-write a book called All New, All Different, A History of Race and the American Superhero.
University of Texas Press, available at fine booksellers everywhere.
Even Amazon.com, which is a less fine bookseller, but still available. But please go directly to the University of Texas website to order the book. But we spent a lot of time in that book wrestling with how powerful pop culture is and how much is it just recycling predominant ideas, how much is it kind of reflecting, how much is it shaping behavior. And I thought the Barbie movie kind of wrestled with that as well, like the idea that you can create a work of popular culture, but you can't control what consumers do with it, the meaning they make from it. That you get weird Barbies, that you get all of these sort of quote unquote misuses of the pop culture. And in that way, when you look at Barbie ads across time, I think it's really easy to look at them historically and just see sexism and not spend the time trying to figure out how kids were actually playing with them, right? Because those are not necessarily the same thing, right? The message and the execution can be very, very different. And I thought in that way, if I were going to talk about what really interested me in the movie beyond sort of where we're at in terms of our societal discussion about feminism, the way in which Gerwig is kind of wrestling with the power of pop culture in our lives and what it does and how we kind of we're not just victims of it, that we have our own agency and the way we can shape the way we use it, I thought was a really interesting kind of idea to wrestle with.
Yeah, well, in terms of I think some of that comes through like the kind of connection that America Ferrera has with the stereotypical Barbie, which I believe is Margot Robbie's actual character name.
Yes.
You kind of see the way that you know, her experiences start to shape Barbie's experiences.
Right. And I think I doubt people think about that very much because it's complicated. And Americans don't like complicated.
Yeah, well, and at the same time, the other thing that you know, I think Gerwig in writing the script does very well is there's that moment at the end where I think it's America Ferrera who suggests making the ordinary Barbie,
right,
or something like that.
Yeah.
And Will Ferrell's character is like, that's a terrible idea, that won't work. And then like the little drone behind him is like, oh, we could sell a lot of those.
Until they start like running the marketing numbers.
Yeah. Which again kind of makes that further critique of kind of capitalism, kind of, as you said, kind of commodifying.
Yeah. Is there an ordinary Barbie? Like, are they actually selling one?
I don't know.
I asked, but I never actually looked it up to see if they were actually trying to market it out of the movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I was kind of surprised. Like I mentioned the other day, I was looking for the Alan Funko Pop.
Yeah.
but they're not actually. There actually isn't one, and there really weren't a ton of Funko Pops that came up in my search for Barbie, which seems surprising because it seems like a very Funko Poppable.
Yeah. Funko
property.
Poppable?
Yeah.
So I want to talk about Alan just real briefly because I
Alan.
have a little skin invested in this game.
Well, number one, it's the first Alan I think I've ever seen in a movie that spells his name exactly like yours.
It's
two
very
Alan.
weird. Now, I will admit, I first found out that Alan was in the movie when you sent me a tweet that had a picture of Michael Cera as Alan, and I have to admit, I kind of went into the movie thinking more Alan slander. Like, there's not a lot of like heroic Allens.
No,
kind of marauding across popular culture. There aren't a lot of Allens. Period. But they're never the
never
hero.
Yeah,
they're never dynamic. They're never the romantic lead.
Yeah,
and
which is important to note. Michael Cera's Alan is none of those things either.
But he is something.
He is something
that matters. I think he is starting to reclaim Alan. That's the argument I want to make.
Okay,
that there is something in him. He's unique. There's only one.
There's one. Yes.
Right. Only one.
There are no multiples of Alan.
That's right.
There is just Alan.
Would you rather have one Alan or all those Kens?
Which Ken we talking about?
No, you got to take all the Kens.
I don't know that I can deal with all the Kens.
All
That's a
the
lot
Kens?
of Kens.
Exactly.
I'm taking Alan. Yeah,
That's
a
the
lot
choice
of
in the
Kenergy.
world. You
That's
get
a
all
lot
the
of
Kens or
Kenergy.
you get Alan.
Yeah, that's a lot of Kenergy to deal with.
Yeah,
That's more than enough Kenergy. Just playing on the puns from the film.
No, I got it.
Just saying.
I did. So I thought there was a step towards reclaiming Alan's. We didn't talk about Ryan Gosling.
No, we haven't talked about that.
Any thoughts on his performance?
He also was excellent in the role. I was a little dubious of him in the role.
I was too.
But I thought he was an excellent Ken, particularly in the musical numbers. And in the past, I have been critical of Ryan Gosling and the musical numbers, but the
yeah, that's right. You don't like Ryan Gosling musicals.
The "I'm Just Ken" song.
You hated La La
and
Land.
then the singing Matchbox 20's push at Barbies.
Yeah, no, that was so
good. Talk
about authentic.
Yes.
Yeah. Hope is literally shivering in the corner.
Yeah, there's
she's had that happen to her more
in terms
once.
of the moments
the
moments that I laughed at really came in kind of one after the other, kind of late in the film. Because obviously the Zack Snyder Justice League line that Alexander Shipp's character delivers like that I think that was the one where I was like laughed out loud the loudest because
for me
so good and so random too.
Too much of it was spoiled, I think, by the trailer, but the whole montage of Ken coming to the real world for the first time and how. Number one, how quickly he absorbs the patriarchy.
Yes,
it's like your kid is fine, and then you send the boy to kindergarten, and within 6 months, it's like, what happened to this kid, right? So, being a doctor, all the kinds of
the doctor, the doctor,
it's just
there's lots of moments that another thing that I liked about the film and kind of the contrast between Barbie and Ken is that. The moment that Ken sort of realizes the idea of patriarchy, his first instinct is to go back to Barbie world and institute it and make things unequal. Yeah. When Barbie sort of comes to the realization of matriarchy, her first instinct is to try to make things more equal. Like she talks about getting back to that balance, which was another nice touch of the film. Right. That in terms of because the critique of matriarchy is perhaps not there as much as the critique of patriarchy, but it is there. Yeah. But I also like kind of the contrast between sort of how the film made between sort of how women react to the idea of matriarchy and how men react to it. I also love, as I've told you before, that the big, huge musical number battle of the Kens. Yes. I think it was about 2/3 of the way through that where I realized they're totally not going to make their vote because they're doing this big montage. I'm like, this is such a complete waste of time. And that was another moment. I was like, oh my god, that's hilarious.
Yes, 100%. That battle on the beach is a battle for the ages.
Yes, and it's a battle for the ages that is a complete waste of time within the narrative of the film. Like, this is fantastic.
And it's worse than a waste of time. It's
actually counterproductive
detrimental
to what they want to do. Yeah,
what they want to achieve. So. Yeah. I assume you have a sign hanging over your front door now that says
Mojo Dojo Casa House?
Yeah.
I do not.
Okay.
Yet.
One night after you go to bed, I think I might sneak over there and hang like a big banner. Yeah. That'd be a pretty good show.
I do like to say Mojo Dojo Casa House.
Yes.
The idea of the Mojo Dojo Casa House and what it represents in the film is problematic.
I wonder if a lot of listeners imagine that you do kind of have a Mojo Dojo Casa House. It's just full. It's like a Lego version thereof.
It's a Lego Mojo Dojo Casa House.
There you go.
Actually, it's a Lego Mojo Dojo Leia Casa House.
Oh, got to get the dog in.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the house between me and Leia is kind of a microcosm between Barbie and Ken. And that I do very much.
Could you play that out a little bit? Because I feel like this is like going to the psychologist now.
I think I do exist in a matriarchy.
Okay. I'm your therapist now.
So
could you explain a little bit further how you think you live in a matriarchy?
I haven't really thought about it. I just made a joke. It was a joke about how much Leia sort of controls my life.
Yes.
Which people point out on a fairly regular basis.
That is true. I think I'm going to let it go because pursuing it further.
Yeah.
The idea that a dog being in charge is a kind of matriarchy, I think, is something we probably don't want to wrestle with too much on this show.
We're going to close the door on that one.
We'll just. Do you have anything else? Hope.
BuzzFeed quiz. Talk about your results.
Oh, so did you do the BuzzFeed quiz?
Oh, no, I didn't.
So I did because Hope is regularly requiring me to do these kinds of things. And I came out stereotypical Barbie.
Did you?
Oh, I did. I don't know if I have the description of stereotypical Barbie.
We can take a hot minute and do that right now as we talk.
All right, so as you guys do that,
is it the which Barbie movie character am I quiz?
You got to go to it was BuzzFeed, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it says pick nothing but pink things to find out which Barbie movie Barbie you are.
All right,
Is it me picking a pink house?
I don't know. It's fuzzy now.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
It's got me picking a pink house. It's BuzzFeed.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
I think it's the BuzzFeed one.
Maybe
one of you will get.
I don't know. It just says.
Can you scroll up? That's not it.
Oh, it's not. It's
no.
BuzzFeed. Is it this one?
Yes, it's this one.
Oh, okay. Oh, this is the one the cast did. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
I just need all the listeners to know that I got Alan.
Okay.
And it was the best day of my life.
Okay.
Well,
what's a quality I look for in a friend?
But the more you thought about it, the more you realized.
Okay. I was concerned.
Do I just keep? Okay.
Mostly because you got Barbie,
Pick
and I was like,
color.
"How are you Barbie?" And I'm.
I can't
Alan.
find the picture of the Barbie description.
Ooh. Okay. Okay. Well, that's an easy one.
Which I have somewhere.
No.
So anyway, I'm sure Zach can just.
Oh, and I got to pick a movie to watch with. Oh boy, those are my options, huh? Okay.
You got to pick what you got to pick, my friend.
Go with that. And okay. Oh, geez. Okay.
All right, let's see.
Not that. Not
When did we do it? Hope, do you know? I'm trying to find.
Guys, I got Alan.
Oh, and yet you and Hope seem so diametrically opposed on so many things.
Boy, I'm not sure.
I got Alan.
I don't think I know any of them. Okay. Whoa. Okay.
Just two Allens making their way
through
that
one. Oh my goodness.
Let's see.
Oh jeez.
Man.
Okay.
I love Alan.
Oh, that's it. We'll go with that. We'll go.
What a guy.
Alan, I don't. Okay, wait. There's a picture of us going to see the movie.
That's what my mom kept saying though when she saw the movie. She was like, she said she laughed so hard every time.
This is upsetting.
Alan
it says
came
finally
on screen.
choose something from Barbie, and the Mojo Dojo Casa House is not an option.
Because nobody would pick that.
Oh man.
There's at least one who would.
Yes, it turns out.
Yeah, that's.
They found the demographic.
I'll go with that, I guess.
All right, what do you got, Patrick?
I don't know.
We gotta move on.
Wait, where does it? When do I get my results?
You gotta scroll up. You're going too far down.
Going too far?
Did you click everything?
Technology is
hard.
Wait a minute.
But as he's figuring this out, my mom loved Alan because she was like, the entire time, he was kind of on Barbie's side, and no one listened to him.
Right.
Ever. Every time he spoke up, he was like, "Guy," he was like, "No."
Yeah. Oh, I'm Barbie.
And that is very much
your personality matches Barbie.
That's what
just
I got.
Regular, like the regular Barbie?
Yeah, just a regular Barbie. But it's not even stereotypical Barbie. It's just Barbie.
Just
mine
Barbie.
says that I'm kind, supportive, and beautiful inside and out.
Yep, that's what mine says.
And I see the good, optimistic side of things.
That's me to a T.
Okay, Now I'm starting to question.
You brighten every single room you walk into? That's so me.
And people absolutely adore you.
Yep,
no,
100% that's
you
me.
brighten every Mojo Dojo Casa House you walk into.
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, had you been able to pick the Mojo Dojo Casa House, I think you would have ended up in a very different category.
You would have gotten Ken.
I mean, I did pick Ken War, so I thought that would end up me with getting Ken, but...
Well, I just thought that was fun. I picked that one, too. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
And so... I mean, I hate to say it, but we are 35 minutes in, and we are only on Barbie, and we've got a much bigger bag to grab.
I do have a fair or foul for Barbie to wrap things up.
Oh, okay. I don't have any fair fouls, but I do.
So this is the actor Randall Park talking in Rolling Stone.
Okay.
Quote, Barbie is this massive blockbuster, and the idea is make more movies about toys. No. Make more movies by and about women.
That seems fair to me. That seems fair to me. I think if we had more movies made by and about women, probably better.
Yep.
Have we talked about Past Lives?
No.
Also directed by a woman. The best film I've seen in a long time.
I missed it by a day in the Cinemark, so I've got to wait until
Cinemark.
I got to wait until it comes on stream.
For a movie like that,
yeah,
you either catch it 3 days into Cinemark or you don't catch it in Cinemark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we should talk about the other half of the Barbieheimer phenomenon.
Barbieheimer?
Is that what it's called? Barbenheimer. Barbenheimer is what it's called. That's right.
Yes.
Barbenheimer.
Barbenheimer. Yeah.
Yep.
So the other big smash this summer, obviously, was Oppenheimer.
Yes.
They opened the same day.
Speaking of which, I have fun facts. About Oppenheimer.
Is it a fun fact like this? Zach took his mom to see it on vacation?
No.
And she thought it was a Transformers
movie? No, my mom recommended it. She's like, okay, so we can go see the Barbie movie or the Oppenheimer movie. And we were all like, all right, we kind of want to see Oppenheimer first.
Okay.
Because that's just the way our family rolls and everything. So my dad was like, Barbie or watching things blow up. So then we got there, and my mom thought it was a Transformers movie or a Marvel movie. So out loud in the theater, she just went, "What the hell is this?" And we all had to turn and shush her.
How far into the movie did she say, what the hell is this?
45 minutes in.
Okay.
So she thought it was like a really artistic Transformer.
She was just like, what is happening? And when she got out, she was like, I don't understand a thing. And just like walked to the car.
Well, if you're not kind of prepared for what it is, and then it's made the way Christopher Nolan made it, it could be. If you're 45 minutes in before you're like, oh, this is not what I thought it was. Yeah. It's a heavy lift. All right, fun facts.
All right. So Oppenheimer just broke what some might consider a rather dubious record.
Oh,
it is now
about money and
it
rankings,
is now the highest grossing domestic film
about mass
to
murder?
never reach number one at the box office during its run. Because obviously Barbie's been there.
Because Barbie was dominant.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's the highest
grossing domestic film to never be number one. Previous record holder was Sing in 2016.
Oh, wow.
Which was kept out of the number one spot by two films, Rogue One and Hidden Figures.
Rogue One is a great movie.
Fantastic
Hidden
movie.
Figures was okay.
Yeah. Now here's the actual question for you. So Barbie, as I mentioned, Barbie has prevented Nolan's Oppenheimer from occupying the number one spot.
That has been mentioned.
Barbie is currently the number 3 film in total opening weekend gross. No. What other 2 Nolan films did Barbie beat to reach that mark?
Well, The Dark Knight.
Correct.
Dark Knight Rises.
Correct. Wow. They are now 4 and 5.
Back to back.
Back to back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it makes sense that those would be the most popular.
Yeah. Surprisingly, Dark Knight Rises is actually higher than The Dark Knight.
It doesn't totally surprise me. The Dark Knight was such a smash. I think that people thought it was going to be even better. So. Spoiler alert. But it almost never is.
Yeah. That's the end of my fun facts, by the way.
For the whole day?
For the whole day, yes.
You can feel the relief.
The room, the air just got lighter.
Right.
Like...
the studio audience looks reinvigorated.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. I still love the fun facts.
So, I don't know if you have a place you want to start.
I
have a very specific place I want to talk about.
Okay.
But
I
want to talk about the pep rally that kind of comes in the middle of the film.
Oh, that's the one with where he's like hallucinating, like everyone's like stomping on the ground and whatnot. Okay.
Yeah. After the bomb, right? So the bomb is dropped, and all the people living in Los Alamos get together in this like this little building that's totally made to look like a high school gym.
Oh yeah,
like, it's literally got like the basketball backboard and hoop. It's got the bleachers. The people stomping their feet is very much like something you would see.
They all look like they're dressed from like Riverdale,
right?
Like,
exactly,
or like early Archie comics.
It's entirely evocative of a '50s pep rally, which in many ways is, I think, evocative in the American imagination of this innocence that we've lost. Fair?
That the 50s is evocative.
Right, the 50s kind of represent this innocence, and the pep rally is kind of about that youthful innocence.
Yeah, and it's all, I mean, again, when people say we need to, make America something again, the something is always sort of 1950s. Like, that's that era. So.
Greatness was the 50s. And it kind of then blends that idea of innocence with the idea that we turn everything in politics and international relations into sport. Nowadays, like we don't think about like the geopolitical realities. We think about it as like rah nationalism. Have I told you the story about the only concert I ever walked out of?
I think you have.
So I went to see AC/DC.
Yeah.
When I was in college. I'm not proud. Let me tell the story real quickly. I went to the concert during the first Gulf War.
Okay.
So we were at war with Iraq. And I drove down to Cincinnati from Bowling Green with my friend because his family lived there. And we would go down for a weekend every once in a while. So we go to Cincinnati, which is a fairly conservative town. And people are selling merch outside the concert. But it's not AC/DC merch.
Right.
It's war merch.
Yeah.
The one I remember is a baseball hat that said FUQ. Iraq, because the Q sounds like a K, and it's like super clever, right?
That's super
to say FUQ.
Yeah.
So they're selling this kind of stuff, and I went because King's X was opening.
Okay.
Nobody cared for King's X, which was a real bummer. AC/DC comes on stage. I don't know how much you know about them, but the lead guitarist, Angus Young, is considered this guitar god. And so in the middle of any heavy metal concert, everybody leaves the stage except for the guitarist, and he does like a shredding guitar solo, like where he plays guitar with like his shoelaces or like some dumb thing. And Angus Young was most famous for, in the middle of his guitar solos, turning around. He'd always wear a schoolboy uniform, like a velour jacket and shorts. And he was famous for always turning around and mooning the audience. He would like turn around, bend over, and drop his shorts. So I'm at this arena in Cincinnati, probably 18,000 people.
This is the short version of this story, right?
Yeah. When I tell it to students, it runs much longer.
Okay.
They're all 18 to 30 years old. They're all white dudes. And he's playing his guitar solo, and you can feel the enthusiasm in the audience building because he's about to turn around and moon us. So he turns around, and he bends over, and he drops his shorts, but there's a twist this time. He's wearing boxer shorts upon which is printed a picture of the American flag. And I swear to God, slowly and quietly at first, the chant starts, but it gets louder and louder. USA, USA, USA. So now, Zach, I want to be very clear about where I'm at.
That's the point at which you walked out?
I walked out, yes. We are chanting USA because a drug-addled Australian is wearing our American flag on his sweaty ass, right? And this is a moment of patriotic celebration. I think the pep rally scene captures that kind of unthinking patriotism, right?
Oh, yeah.
We made a bomb, we dropped the bomb, and it's good. And I love that this is, and then I'll let you talk, I promise, that this is a real turning point, I think, for Oppenheimer and the way he thinks about the bomb. Like, to this point, the bomb has, for Oppenheimer, been largely kind of an intellectual exercise.
Yes.
It's been about theory.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, there's a big difference between the theory of the bomb and the practice of the bomb. And this is where I think he sees it like this. He's got this scientist's assurance in the first part of the film that totally gets punctured here. And it gets punctured in particular because we see the white woman sitting in the audience caught in a nuclear blast. Like she has this really delicate skin and it starts to kind of flay off of her body. And this is kind of the turning point for him. And I think it matters, although you might disagree, that it's a turning point for him because he sees what the bomb would do to white folks. That he's imagining what it means for white people, for what it means for Americans, right, in his imagination. Because he's spent very little time really thinking about what it means for Germans or Japanese people to this point in the film. And so, to me, it's a moment in the film that captures so much that's true about American hubris and American exceptionalism and maybe even a little American racism as well.
Yeah, well, no, I think there's a lot going on in that moment, and I think it because one of the things that I've seen as critiques of the film, there have been people sort of saying, there's no representation of the actual bombs being dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that there's no representation of that. And by and large, I think that the general defense of that from Nolan and Murphy as well have been the film is sort of told from Oppenheimer's perspective. Right. And, Oppenheimer, for whether we want to chalk it up to, because I agree that the one of the things that kind of jumps out at me with Oppenheimer is the theory versus practice thing. And it's one of the things that I don't know that the film ever redeems him from.
Right.
Because the moment that stood out to me in that regard was when he was talking to Lawrence and was annoyed about being left out of the secret project. And Lawrence says, well, it's because of your work with the union guys. And without missing a beat, Oppenheimer's like, well, then I'm done with them. Like his willingness to pursue everything in relation to the bomb, in relation to theory, and ignoring practical consequences is kind of the through line of his character.
Because the curiosity, it's hella fun to build a bomb.
Yes.
Once you realize it's actually going to be used,
it's a little bit less fun. Which he realizes too late. Right. And I think the other...
There's a great scene with Groves where they're carting the bombs off, and he's like, well, should I come to D.C.? Like, how do you want me involved? And he's like, we're done. Dude.
Yeah, we're done.
Like, you're going to find out when Truman gets on the radio and makes an announcement.
Well, and I think the other thing, because you talked about sort of the racism in that moment, because I think I agree with you in terms of it's important for him to see the effect on a white woman. Because I think the other thing, because a lot of people have also said, the film ignores the indigenous people that were on the test site at the bottom. I'm like, yeah, because Oppenheimer ignores them.
Right.
Like, I think that's because
they get mentioned.
They get the one moment when he's in the meeting after the bomb, and they're like, well, what should we do with the land? And I'm like, oh, we give it back to the indigenous people. I'm like, that's not as good as you think it is, Oppie.
Right.
And so the fact that it takes him seeing the white woman also speaks to kind of his blinders in terms of race as well.
Absolutely.
Because there's also, he does in that pep rally step on a blackened corpse, which presumably would be of a Japanese person.
Right.
But that's not what really gets to him. It's the white woman.
Right.
And so I think that there's things that the film did there that I understand the critique of the film,
right,
but I think a lot of it has to do with the perspective. And particularly, this is not a film that, for me, in any way redeems Oppenheimer. One of the things that I really like about the film is the way in which the film, like, they're where he dumps the union guys.
Yeah.
The moment where he and his wife just dump their kid off with the friends, and the film does nothing to redeem them as parents. Like, we don't get the Oppenheimer agonizing over it.
I really appreciate how ambiguous and unresolved the issues are in this film. Hope and I have gone back and watched a lot of Nolan stuff, which I have to admit, I watched the Dark Knight stuff.
Yeah,
and I was kind of like, that's enough.
There's better
Nolan
enough
out there. Right. That's enough.
Generally speaking, Nolan is of contemporary directors, he's probably my favorite. Like, I really like a lot. Like, Memento is one of my favorite films. I love Memento.
Hope and I watched Inception together.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, if you can make me watch Matthew McConaughey and not make me forget that it's Interstellar.
Yeah, I was going to say McConaughey's on.
We watched Interstellar too. but to watch McConaughey and not be focusing the whole time on, like, what the hell is Matt McConaughey doing in this movie? No, I think he's really good. My working theory now, because I have complaints about something of a lack of nuance in some of the Dark Knight stuff. I feel as if Nolan is kind of trapped by the genre there. That the superhero genre limits him in ways that some of the other stuff that he... But, I've been thinking a lot about the race, because obviously I study Japanese American history. I study American foreign policy history. This was kind of a film that fell within a lot of my wheelhouses. I think had Christopher Nolan, number one, including Japanese stories, would have made this a 4.5 hour.
Yeah, film. I don't know how you. I don't know how you do it within the context of the film as well, being built around Oppenheimer's.
Right, and because it's built the way it's built, if he had included Japanese characters, he would be including them just to be incinerated. Mm-hmm. And I feel as if that would open you up to just as much criticism.
Yeah.
And so I feel as if, I actually feel like they handled it fairly well. Mm-hmm. They at least force Oppie to sit through that slideshow about the devastation of the bomb.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is Christopher Nolan trying to confront what the movie's not confronting, if that makes sense. But the worst kind of book review to read is the book review by a scholar who's like, this is not the book I would have written.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that kind of criticism also really makes for bad film criticism. Like, it's not the film I would have made. Like, I guess we can talk about the merits of the choices, but Christopher Nolan chose to make a very particular film told from the perspective of Oppenheimer, and I think he should be allowed to do that.
Yeah, well, and I think also in terms of, it's a different critique than, what some of the criticisms have made about not representing Japanese in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, not really representing indigenous people.
Right.
But the film is still making a critique of Oppenheimer and his complete ignorance, blindness, whatever you want to refer to it, his racism, that caused him just completely ignore the cost to people different from him. And I think that's a completely fair critique to make in this film.
Yeah. No, because what people know coming into the film, probably the only thing they know is that we dropped 2 atomic bombs and they killed several 100,000 Japanese people. Like, that's the one thing we know. What Oppenheimer is exploring is everything that we don't know that leads to it. And I think in really morally complicated ways, which strikes me as an authentic way to think about the world.
Yeah, no, I think there's I like a lot of what the one sort of minor critique or the one part of the film that doesn't make sense to me is the whole idea that's built around Oppenheimer's perspective.
Yeah.
And we obviously see his affair with Florence Pugh's character.
Right.
But it doesn't make sense to me that we never saw the affair with his friend's wife, if it's from his perspective.
Yeah.
Like, how is that why that wouldn't be a surprise to Oppenheimer, so why is that a surprise to us in the film? That's the one moment I would say Nolan kind of breaks with his kind of the mechanics of the film.
The only defense I have off the cuff for Nolan
is it would be a 4.5 hour movie.
Yeah, right. Yeah. If we're gonna have to look at every affair that Oppenheimer had, it's gonna be.
Yeah. So
I have a bigger complaint,
which is
that they have to mention John Kennedy as being like the key guy who denies Strauss his cabinet.
I was kind of
it just galls me the way that always have to valorize that guy.
Here's my theory. Is the film setting up that Strauss is behind JFK's assassination?
You think it's going to be an Oliver Stone?
Yes, it's an Oliver Stone like that because the guy says there's 3 votes they lost, but they only mentioned JFK.
Yeah.
Well, and Strauss, as the film shows, is a vindictive man.
Yes.
Which, by the way, Downey Jr. fantastic in that role.
Absolutely.
I mean, really, everyone in this film is fantastic in their role. I mean, I would
Murphy
say
in this film.
Yeah, I would say Emily Blunt and Florence Pugh. The film probably doesn't give them enough to do.
Yeah, I have to admit.
I mean, they're great in their roles, but their roles also feel a bit small to me.
My first time through the film, I struggled a little bit with some of the choices that Emily Blunt made. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, Hope and I went to see it in IMAX.
Okay.
The second time with Vicky.
Okay.
The way they use sound in this film, just brilliant. And it was in IMAX. The seats were literally rumbling.
I do have to say that was I was a little bit because I just saw it in regular basic whatever Cinemark's basic thing. I was not as overwhelmed by the bomb and kind of the presentation of it as I was kind of expecting it to be.
I thought the way the film goes silent was just brilliant.
Oh, that I thought was. I mean, that totally makes sense because the sound is.
But what a brilliant moment of filmmaking!
So,
just
I have to say something.
Yes.
When it all goes silent, you also can hear every audience member and all the sounds that they're making, and I felt super self-conscious, and I was really aware of everybody else. So, what a community moment too.
Yeah, somebody is a performance studies major, obviously. But yeah, no.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I don't like to brag, but yeah.
But you do feel it, and you feel it collectively. It's just It's brilliantly made film.
It's almost like the chaos that's happening, but it's dead quiet.
Yeah,
like what do you? Because what's happening.
Yeah, and he makes you just sit in it
for minutes.
Yeah, it feels like forever. Yeah. Right, it feels like forever that you're sitting in that silence, and it's just.
I was expecting something much worse to happen. I can't remember who it is that's sitting in the car with the glass that refuses like the glasses or whatever it is, or the protective.
Is that Teller?
Was it the guy who was played by Josh Peck?
Teller's got the stuff cream on his face.
Was it the guy who played Josh Peck? No, he was in the. He was in the.
Yeah, I can't remember. I was like, oh, clearly that's. I'm like, you're trusting the American-made glass in that windshield to shield you from.
Yeah, back then we made American.
I guess we did because I was like, oh, it didn't. I was expecting something much worse to happen.
Yeah.
To him.
Yeah. A brilliant film. As a historian, one of the things I really appreciated was the way in which the film introduces the debate that will rage forever among historians about why we actually dropped the bomb. And it never does it in a didactic way. We don't get like a 5-minute lecture. But across the course of the film, why do we drop the bomb? Revenge for Pearl Harbor in years of bloody warfare. The ethical erosion concerning bombing that happened across the war. Once you firebomb Dresden and once you firebomb Tokyo and you're killing tens of thousands of civilians, women, kids, like old folks, then all of a sudden the dropping the atomic bomb doesn't seem like that big a threshold to cross, right? We've been slowly crossing that threshold. Like Truman and his obsession with his own masculinity and turning everything into poker analogies gets in there. Bureaucracy. I thought one of the things I most liked about this film is it's kind of a study of bureaucracy and the way in which we compartmentalize decision making that allow us to make really, really terrible decisions.
The theme of compartmentalization in this film is pretty. I mean, again, that's another way that you can describe kind of what Oppenheimer does too.
Right.
Is he embraces compartmentalization,
right?
Both sort of as bureaucracy, but also in some ways as an individual
his
sort of ethos.
Intellectual and spiritual kind of ability to compartmentalize.
Because it's important to note, in the idea, in the whole like Oppenheimer theory versus practice sort of debate.
Right.
I think it's significant to point out that the moment that Oppenheimer learns they split the atom.
Yeah.
His immediate reaction is like, "Oh, we're going to make a bomb." Like there's a way in which he knows, he both knows and doesn't know the immediate practical consequence.
But he also immediately frames it in, every physicist is thinking this.
Yeah.
And so it becomes this moral dodge about building a bomb. Like, I have to build a bomb because if I don't, the Nazis will build a bomb.
Yeah.
Right? That's another kind of moral compartmentalization that I can do horrible things, well, because I'm Batman, right? Because I'm on the good guy's side. Yeah. And we can't let the bad guys.
But it also feeds in that idea of, as you kind of talked about, the way in which we turn everything into a sport.
Yeah.
The competition with the Nazis to build the bomb becomes a sport, a competition.
Right. But it's really sexy for scientists, right? Yeah. Like, that's exciting because that's kind of where you want to be until you actually get it. But that bureaucratic momentum, like historians have written, I think very accurately so, that like when you build a bomb, you're building it with the assumption you're going to use it. And Groves in this film, who I think Matt Damon plays quite brilliantly, he embodies that. Like, well, yeah, like we're building a bomb to use it.
Yeah.
Like that's the military sees it as a tool. You build a tool to use it. You don't build a tool not to use it. So it works really well. I mean, the one thing the film doesn't really think about much is race.
Yeah.
And the way in which race may or may not have factored in Truman's decision to drop the bomb. But overall, I think Nolan, without preaching or teaching, does a pretty good job of introducing the various complexities that we're all feeding the momentum to drop a bomb.
Well, and I think you could make the argument that the extent to which the film does think about race is to show, that at least part of the decision made was that we didn't really care about the Japanese as a people.
Right.
Like there's the one moment where the guy says, well, I can't remember which city he says we can't bomb that because I vacationed there.
Kyoto.
It is Kyoto.
Yeah.
But that's the concern, not the people there. Like there's kind of an across the board. He
did mention that it's a national landmark. There's a lot of history there, so we can't touch it.
Right, but he also ties it to his family
like
vacation.
Why it
matters
here.
as a landmark is because we
like to go
kind
visit
of
there.
Tour. Yeah. No, absolutely. So in that way, thinking about the complexity and the bureaucracy, I guess I thought a lot about the military-industrial complex and the relationship it built with scientists and with leftists. Oppenheimer kind of represents both, of course. Right? I can see why scientists get sucked in. Like there's loads of money and exciting research to be done. But Oppenheimer is also a leftist, right? He's a fellow traveler of sorts. Maybe he's not committed enough.
Yeah,
for
I don't know if he's committed enough for me, but I think the film kind of shows that he's not. Again, it's another thing that I think he responds to on an intellectual level, but not more than that.
Right, because the bomb's intellectual appeal outweighs communism.
Yeah, even in the early going of the film, like he's always kind of on the edge of the leftist movements. Like he's not, because every time someone calls him a lefty or communist or whatever, he's like, "Well, I didn't actually join.
I didn't join the party." But
like, he always tries to maintain kind of that distance in a way.
True, but he also goes to parties that he knows he shouldn't be going to.
Yeah.
And he makes friendships with Chevalier and others who he should not be making friendships with. Yeah. There is enough of a commitment in him to say, like, well, what they're doing is right. But I think the point is that those ideals get corrupted really easily when you get pulled into the military-industrial.
Yeah, well, or not just corrupted, abandoned. I mean, he abandons all of his leftist friends just to be on the secret project.
Right. But it also, I think that abandonment is a kind of corruption in him, right? If this is what he believes in terms of people, he'd rather have science than people.
Well, I think it also kind of boils down to, because one of the things I pulled away from this thing boils down to pride and ego.
Oh, absolutely.
Like everything boiled down to it. And even at the end, the moment that really got me, and why I think a lot of like the people who were there and the Japanese people as well, of why it didn't happen, was because it made it more powerful, because we weren't even thinking about it when we were building it in the first place, because we were so, every scientist was all about their own ego, their own pride. And at the end, when Albert Einstein had to say to him, you have to put your ego aside, you're going to be tarred and feathered, and eventually they're going to forget, and they're going to give you a medal.
And they're going to feed you like a cheap
but it's not for you, it's for them.
It's not for you. All your friends are going to shake your hand because it's beneficial for them.
And that's like the tragedy of it all, right? He is an utter genius who thinks he can control everything just because he's smart. And it turns out power doesn't really care very much about smart. Power will use smart as a tool to get where it wants to get. Yeah. But the system isn't going to let you have control of it because you're smart.
And
so he when he discovers that he's a tool and not the machine's maker, is like, that's a really powerful trajectory across the course of
You see the switch when Emily Blunt says, "Why are you letting them do this? Why aren't you fighting this?"
Yeah.
Then you see something that he knows something or something flipped when in the beginning of the movie he would fight.
Yeah. Well, I think it's another,
because he can't. Right, he can't
because he knows
he can't win. Like the story has been preordained from the moment Groves first sat down at that desk.
Well, and I think that's the other thing. Another way to kind of phrase, the way in which the film emphasizes the flaws in Oppenheimer is that he's really smart at science. He's really smart at theory. He does not understand politics.
Right.
Because the politics are what get him in the end. And that's a whole realm that he kind of sees himself separate from or is ignorant of, or however, because the whole like the present of the film, which sort of has him, being interrogated and whatnot, kind of shows how kind of out of his depth he is in the political arena.
Well, he's not as smart as he thinks he is, ultimately. That his intelligence isn't... if only Kennedy had lived, then clearly politics would have been better and everything would have been fine. Yeah.
Well, that's clearly a message you can embrace in this film.
Yeah.
You being such a lifelong Kennedy fan. So, particularly the lionization of Kennedy.
I don't know if you remember, I think when we did the questions episode, I think Zach... I don't know if you wrote the question or if somebody else did. If we were going to make a movie, what movie would we make? And I talked about nobody's made the Japanese-American movie yet during World War II. I would love to have Christopher Nolan shoot it. The way in which he captures these desert vistas so beautifully in this film, but he has this knack as a filmmaker to juxtapose the broadest possible images with the most personal and smallest. kinds of images that just work, I think. And he's the guy that I want to make my movie.
And he's really good at what I'm finding is really, really important for films and everything is to keep the main thing the main thing. And I think he does that.
That's pretty good.
Like, I think he does that really well.
Yeah.
Like, I think he focuses on Oppenheimer, and he focuses on Oppenheimer's view and his ego and pride.
Yeah.
But when you kind of have these other ideas of the time that are coming in, it can make a movie really messy.
Right.
But Nolan, because if you go into the Japanese, the tragedy that happened with them, or the displaced people that were having for Los Alamos and everything, it makes the movie messier. He kept the main thing the main thing.
Right. And I think about that as a lesson that ought to be applied to almost every superhero movie that's come out in the last 10 or 15 years, where they feel like they have to stuff everything into the film, and they end up making these kind of overloaded, puffy, bloated kind of
Which is
films.
why, of course, the Hawkeye series is the best, because they keep the main thing in the Hawkeye series.
Lucky the dog.
Which is Hawkeye.
I think we'd all agree, actually, that Hawkeye is one of the better things that Disney Plus has done, and in part because it is, I think, better focused than, say, a Moon Knight was.
Yeah. But I also, like, it's almost... because you're focusing on a movie about a person with flaws, it's almost better that the movie has some flaws in it and doesn't show certain aspects and sides.
Well, and the film has some messiness in it too, in the way that, like, we don't get any kind of redemption for him dumping the kid off.
You don't feel better. You don't feel good about him.
And the way, can I talk about
you shouldn't, right?
No.
I talk about, like, there's a point in the film that at some point there's, like, Oppenheimer's brother, there's Chevalier, and then there's the Tolman husband. Like, at some point I was like, wasn't sure those were three different people. Like, there were times like, oh, wait a minute, that is a third different person? That's not, who's Chevalier and Tolman and the brother, where I got confused. Which I kind of liked the messiness of the film. Like, it didn't, like, another filmmaker might have made all of those one character just to simplify things. And so I like that some of the way the film presents the story is messy as well.
I think that messiness is really important. I understand that a lot of Hollywood fare tries to squeeze messiness out, but I think Nolan is getting at more profound truths because he's willing to let it be messy.
Yeah.
I think I've watched it twice. I think if I went back and watched it a third time, I would see it differently. Different things would come into focus. Other things would, like, lose a little bit of focus. I think that messiness is really... I think one of the things he does really well with messy is thinking about violence, finally, in this film, and the way he connects it to the frontier.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the frontier, because, I mean, when you were talking about, like, the shots of the vistas and everything, again, you can kind of see Oppenheimer's understanding of the land is very frontiery, because he's like, ooh, beautiful vistas and mountains and everything, but ignores the people that were there.
Right.
Which, and does something very violent on that frontier, devastating to the people that are there.
It's his favorite place.
And he goes back.
Like, that's the place.
That's my favorite place. Let's detonate the bomb here. I'm like, yeah, but there is kind of, Oppenheimer does kind of capture that American version of that American frontier kind of mythology,
without beating you over the head with it, without being really didactic and preachy about it. It's just there. The same thing with sex and violence works in this film as well. The ways in which Americans have this kind of warped connection between sex and violence, that's there too. But again, in really messy ways that aren't always easily articulated, but capture. We'd like to think that the decision to build a bomb, then building the bomb, and then choosing to drop the bomb, all followed a very logical, linear process. And none of it does. Yeah. Like, all of these outputs that we see as just the bomb on Hiroshima doesn't come from a single linear line of thought. And I love that messiness.
Well,
too. We don't have as much control as we think we do.
Or if it does come from a linear line of thought, it's a linear line that started with dropping the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Right. Whatever
and
linear
everything
lines
else
we
happened
build
before it.
Right. Whatever linear lines we build, like, that's what historians do. You go back and you find those narrative threads, but we're always creating those narrative threads on some level. There's always different approaches you could take, different perspectives you could bring. So I think I really liked this film. I have a fair or foul for you.
Okay.
Okay?
Do I have a fair? No, I don't have a fair or foul for this.
Saw Oppenheimer today, parenthetically, which was excellent. and was reminded of Virginia Woolf's apropos observation that biographies can, quote, provide the husk of a life, but that fiction can, quote, extract the atom.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
How are you feeling about that? Fair or foul?
It's rare that I can see the trap laid for me right then and there.
Oh, there's another level to the trap.
Oh, I know there's another level to the trap.
Oh, do you?
I'm pretty sure I know what the trap is.
Oh, you know what that trap is? There's a second trap.
There's a second trap?
Yeah, there's a secondary trap.
Oh, is it
not common sense.
Okay, I was just saying, is it that kind of a trap?
But you're sniffing down the right lane.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't like.
So what do you think? Fair or foul? Biographies can provide the husk of life. But fiction can extract the atom.
Certain fiction can, yes. Not all fictions.
Is it fair or is it foul? We don't do semi-fair.
Sure, we
do.
We do that all the time.
Okay. Anyway,
I will say on Patrick's defense here,
yes,
there has been like, it's semi-right.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly. Well, that was written by Brian Carso, Facebook user. So. So we should talk about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Should we do should we move into lightning round mode? Because we're already quick hits on the last few things.
I guess we can't really split this, but we can have a slightly longer one since we haven't done anything else.
That's true.
It's a podcast. You can pause it.
Yeah.
Come back to it later.
Yeah, exactly. Take a break. Have some lunch, go to the restroom, come back for the next part. Yeah, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
So, can I start by talking about Nazis?
Sure.
I was interested to see how the film used Nazis.
Again, if you want to talk about your Nazi fandom, go right ahead.
Well, at the risk of offending Nazi listeners, and I hope that we don't have a lot of them.
Oh, but because I'm sure none of what we've said to this point has offended the Nazi listeners in our audience.
The film made me marvel a little bit about how much things have changed. Back in the 80s, we all took it for granted that Nazis ought to be punched.
Yes.
Punching Nazis
is what you do to Nazis.
Unambiguously a good thing in the 1980s. Nowadays, if you go to Twitter or whatever, kind of makes you wonder if everybody thinks we ought to be punching Nazis. But what I loved about this film, and I don't know if Mangold did this on purpose or not, but it's an old idea that if you had a time machine, would you go back in time and kill Hitler? That's kind of the classic. Would you kill him when he was a baby to avert all the terrible stuff that comes? What I loved in this film is that the old Nazi Dr. Voller is engaging in that argument. If you could build a time machine, would you go back? Yeah. And his answer is, I would go back and kill Hitler, but only to make sure that I did Hitler stuff better.
Yes.
Which I thought was just this beautiful little twist, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to kill Hitler to prevent genocide. He's like, no, I want to kill Hitler so I can do it better.
Hitler's the problem.
Right, yes, but not in the way that you would expect.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not efficient enough at his
Hitler's
job.
what kept us
exactly.
from the Third Reich.
I love that. I love that little twist in the film, that they're thinking about Nazis a little bit differently. So what was your overall take on Harrison Ford's last turn in the fedora?
I would say
it's a hat.
A couple things. It is easily the fourth best Indiana Jones film. Again, clearing that bar is not hard because you basically just have to get past Crystal Skull and you're number 4.
Number 3 is Crystal Skull? No, 5 is Crystal Skull.
5 is Crystal Skull. This is 4. Temple of Doom is 3. I go back and forth between Raiders and Last Crusade as 1 and 2 because they're both really good.
Can I admit something on this podcast?
What?
I don't love Indiana Jones like I'm supposed to for somebody who was a kid in the 1980s. I just don't. I've watched all of the films. Yeah. I don't remember all of them that well. Okay. Crystal Skull, that's the refrigerator?
Yes.
That really resonates with me still. But, yeah.
So it did, but, did we need a 5th Indiana Jones film? Probably not. Was this perfectly entertaining as an Indiana Jones film? Yeah.
I would say it was perfectly entertaining, actually.
It is a very James Mangold film in that
working through a guy out of his age.
There's that. There's also, just like the Wolverine was good for 3/4 and then had a weird ending with Silver Samurai Robot.
Yeah.
And Logan was great for 3/4 and then kind of went weird with, killer young clone Logan.
Right.
Actually going back in time to talk to Archimedes.
Yeah.
Little weird.
At this point,
didn't feel as weird as the other things, because I'm like, Indiana Jones, he's seen God like melt people's faces, like there's a certain element in that, but I was like, it does have kind of that James Mangold-esque, was like, you didn't quite stick the landing, but maybe not as much as in other films you didn't stick the landing.
But it was interesting to kind of watch this film from the prism of Logan in particular, and thinking about. It
is very Logan. It's Indiana Logan.
Yeah. And in an interview with Collider,
it's Logan if it was PG-13 instead of R.
I think Logan is actually a little bit better, but fair enough. He talked about that in an interview. Sort of, he wanted to find this point to tell the story about a man whose shtick doesn't really work anymore. A man who knew how the world worked and was really successful in it. But now Indiana Jones is teaching classes like any other college professor.
Oh, yeah.
Really bored students who don't care about
They're not blinking love you on the eyelids anymore in his class.
No. He has lost...
Oh, in the first Raiders of Lost Ark movie, when he's teaching a class, one of the female students closes her eyes, and she's got love and you printed on her eyelids that Indy can see.
Oh, it's bad. Yeah. It's real bad.
But the film...
I mean, keep in mind, whatever he did to Marion prior to the first film, she was underage. So Indiana Jones is not a good person.
So, that being said, I think... well, you guys are the ones that said I'm not a good person and I'm un-American because I have not...
He said that. I did not say you were un-American.
I said that as a quick aside. Because how could you not like...
so I think we should...
How could you not like a guy who loves war?
We should make quick asides as a way to get out of jail free. Oh, no. I said that, but it's only a quick aside.
I just want to point out, Zach didn't say, I said that as a joke. He said, I said that as an aside.
Right.
Well, because who doesn't love a good hero who gets the girl in the end, finds the treasure? Isn't that so American?
So I thought the film, just going to move on past the quick aside, handled nostalgia a little bit better than The Flash did.
Okay.
It felt like a little bit less heavy-handed.
How low's the bar?
I was going to say,
right, but the thing that really kept throwing me out of the film...
for God's sake, Transformers handle nostalgia better than The Flash did.
That's a good point. The action sequence at the beginning, especially the knife fight when they're on their bellies going through the tunnel, to me, that's classic Indiana Jones, right? You need to have those big set-piece action scenes. But the way that they use the CGI to de-age Harrison Ford, I find that very off-putting. It was very Polar Express-y to me, in a way that, you can tell it's not real.
This didn't feel as bad to me as other things. Just part of it is that, because
really threw me.
Because Ford talked about it. They have tons of footage of young Harrison Ford from the from outtakes and dailies. Right. That's what they used for it. So it didn't seem as bad as other things.
Yeah,
that
it felt very. It just felt to me.
But I'm not a big fan of where they're using the whole de-agey stuff way too much. I'm
especially when they do really old dudes who walk like they're 80 years old, but they look like they're 20 years old.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, work. And I'll apologize in advance because I am spoiling the end of Mandalorian season 2 for you. And I know
you don't need. You have no need to apologize.
So
for that.
When they bring back Luke Skywalker, they actually found an actor who is literally the spitting image of a young Mark Hamill. Yeah. And they still CGI'd Mark Hamill's face on him, and it looked weird.
Yeah, why?
And I'm like, you look at the shots of the guy playing him, no, he looks like just Mark Hamill. That is what he would look like at this age.
Right? Yeah.
And so, so. I enjoyed Dial of Destiny.
It was perfectly fine.
Yeah, I thought maybe...
Is that the phrase we use?
That is, yes.
It was perfectly fine.
I thought maybe the whole, plot base on making sure everyone knows that Shia LaBeouf's character from the last film is dead. I was like, I get that they had to deal with that in some way, but I'm like, that was maybe a little harsh to kill him in Vietnam.
His girl coming back at the end is... Also, I just really...
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as it could have been for me. I thought they actually handled that pretty well. It was nice to see Karen Allen.
But it just felt...
Particularly that I didn't like how they used her in Crystal Skull.
I don't remember how they used her in Crystal Skull.
She was not... It was not a good take on the character. So it was nice to see... Because she seemed somewhat unbalanced in that film. It was nice to see her, kind of paying a little bit more respect to the character and the actor.
How'd you feel about Phoebe Waller-Bridge?
She was fine.
I thought she was better than fine.
Yeah.
I thought she was good.
Yeah, I'll say, that's good.
Maybe not great, but this was a film that
she was better than Shia LaBeouf in the supporting role.
Yeah, and I just feel as if it's her character, the arc that she takes is too predictable.
I will say the one thing that I did not like, and here I'm going to be on common ground with you.
Yeah.
The kid sidekick that she had.
That's what's next. Teddy.
Yeah.
Why do we need Teddy? I don't want Teddy. It's just... It's the nod is to such a racist origin story.
Yeah. Like, that's the other. We didn't.
Why would you put a big billboard in the middle of the film? It's like, remember how racist we were?
Yeah, we didn't need that.
In the 1980s?
We didn't. We also could have done as much as the fans might have liked seeing Sala.
Yeah,
I don't need John Rhys Davies in brownface being the British actor playing an Egyptian. I'm like, didn't need as much of him.
The film is just reminding us of why some people, Zach, it's just a quick aside, might not be huge fans of Indiana Jones.
I'm just saying, Americans love it.
But in that, it does sort of perfectly capture the Indiana Jones films. When we go back, you're like, oh, yeah, we would.
Yeah, every once in a while you're kind of like, oh,
we wouldn't do that today.
Yeah. No, but we are doing it today, aren't we?
But we are. So, but didn't hate the film. Did we need it? No. Did it change my life in some way? No. Perfectly enjoyable.
But for a Saturday afternoon where you're just going out, on a date or going
that was
out
part of my
big
because I saw that on Friday, Barbie Saturday, Oppenheimer Sunday. That was my big movie weekend.
So I think so far in the grab bag, we would say Barbie would be a must see.
Oh yeah.
Oppenheimer would be a must see.
Yes.
Indiana Jones would be if you got time, go see it. Did you see Elemental?
I did not, though. It's apparently on Disney Plus now, so I can watch it.
Well, I have notes, but I did not take very good notes. Here are my notes on Elemental. Generations, 0, 1, 2.
Mm-hmm.
Pants.
Question mark. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing in the movie. Some of the elementals wear pants and others don't. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I can live with a movie where you don't wear pants. I can live with a movie where they do wear pants. But like where you get to choose whether you're wearing pants or not.
It's the Mickey Mouse conundrum.
I got problems with that.
Is it different of the same element not wearing pants? Or do the different elements all... Kind of like if
to be honest, do you see the quality of my notes? I don't remember.
Yes.
It's going to be my answer.
Society and wealth are two of your other notes.
I have society. I have wealth.
Keep in mind each of these is a separate line.
Right. Preaching or reflecting. I don't know what that means. And then puns. They all the elements have pun names. Like, wouldn't you run out of pun names really quickly?
Yeah.
No. Really?
Oh, you can make puns about anything.
All right,
Switch to different languages.
Let's
then you
do
got
water
that
real
too.
quick.
I'm out.
Okay, so just as a quick aside, easily done. I'm not doing it.
Well, I'm just to say, if somebody were to come up with them, you could come up with a lot of them.
Yeah, but this is a world that has like millions of people.
Cloudy.
Yeah.
Is that a pun?
No.
Yeah, like
just cloudy.
What was that?
Just cloudy.
That's not a pun, and it's not about water. Like what? Like it's.
Do you know what a cloud is?
But it's air.
It's water.
It's air. It's in the sky, so it's air.
Do you know what a cloud is?
I know clouds are made of ice crystals or whatever the heck they are.
Ice crystals.
Water crystals, vapor, whatever. But it's in the air, so it's air. Clouds are air. If I'm making my Elemental movie, the clouds are in the air. They're air.
I'm glad the heat's off me now.
I'm glad you said something dumb like cloudy because it took us down to even better.
Like I said, I'm glad the heat's off me. Like,
then I have Carl. Right at the end.
That's
of my
not a pun either.
No, I don't know what Carl. I don't know.
You spell it with a K. Is it Karl Marx?
No. That's all I got.
Okay.
It was kind of interesting because it definitely wants to tell
it's
the
Carl
story
Sparks, actually. Carl Sparks in Elemental.
See?
There we go. There's a good one. Hey, I had to redeem myself.
But a spark isn't fire. A spark is
an ember.
Fire.
Ember, still fire.
No, sparks are fire.
We got enough.
Carl Sparks is good. Cloudy was not.
Yeah.
It was really bad.
But it is a film that's trying to explore what it means to be an immigrant.
Yeah, I know that.
And kind of working through generational.
I gotta say, none of if I had just not known that.
Yeah.
That's not what I want to phrase. You would not know that from any of the film's advertising.
Right.
Like there is nothing in the advertising that makes like when I saw an interview with the creator where they quoted the creator saying he based it on his immigrant experience. I'm like, well, huh? Because none of that comes through
it's
in the
almost
advertising.
as if Pixar maybe feeling some political heat from previous films like Lightyear that didn't do quite as well.
I think it just has more to do with.
They try to just like sneak a pro-immigrant message through without.
Possibly. I mean, Pixar's they've been done a disservice by Disney in general. So,
well, but what has Disney serviced well?
Secret Invasion. Did you like that segue?
Well, we got that, and we got American-born Chinese.
Yes.
Secret Invasion. If I could review it in one sentence. Mm-hmm. Garbage, dumpster fire, awful, not worth 10 minutes of your time.
I think the honest trailer by Screen Junkies summed it up well.
Yes. By
describing the show as about, quote, two old guys yelling about off-screen promises they broke. And I'm like,
that is a good deal of it.
There is a good story to tell in Secret Invasion. Unfortunately, they focused on everything that's not the good story. Because everything I want to see is stuff that they're like, oh, there's millions of Skrulls running around. I'm like, really?
I have said repeatedly that what they should have done was take Secret Invasion and made it the next arc on the big screen. That's what it should have been. Turns out Robert Downey Jr. is a Skrull. That would be fun. Yeah. Right? So that was the big miss. Yeah. Here's my big complaint with it. It's a spy thriller that's not thrilling. There is not a moment in that show that I'm on the edge of my seat.
Mm-hmm. No,
it's a very poorly done thriller.
Yeah, no, it's just poorly done. Period. The other thing is that it raises all kinds of issues continuity wise. Because you're telling me Nick Fury has had a secret spy network of people who can appear as anything,
right?
And he still didn't know Hydra had taken over S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I
thought about that.
Like how?
I like how you got really high pitched there. Like you're so offended.
It's kind of like the TVA type.
I'm just like
and
how?
The Eternals. Like where were you when all this stuff was going down?
And then the other thing he mentions at one point, because they have to do this in every show, because every show they do focusing on one person has to somehow explain why none of the other Avengers are showing up.
That was my next point.
And they have to have that point where he says we have to stop relying on Avengers and superheroes in general to solve their problems. Two issues with that. One, all of their problems are solved by Gaia getting all kinds of superpowers and fighting off Gravik.
Right.
Two, now instead of, the Avengers not showing up, why didn't Gaia, who has the powers of the entire MCU, show? Why didn't they call her?
Right.
In future things. Like, Gaia's running around with the powers of everybody.
Yeah.
But we're probably never going to see her again.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense. One thing I hate in movies and pop culture generally is when somebody says, well, there are other people who could help me with this, but this is my problem.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to go fix it myself.
Yes.
It's a really poorly written plot device
particularly
to keep Avengers out.
When you are one person in Nick Fury and your problem is a million Skrulls. I'm like, I feel like that's not really a Fury problem.
Right.
That feels like you need a bit more help.
Can I just say, the way they engineer Gaia getting the powers at the end, that they just assume that when Gravik turns on the superpower making machine, that he'll keep Fury inside of it. Mm-hmm. That makes no sense at all.
There's a lot that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It is just... It's
there
not
is
good.
Zero learning curve to having all of those powers.
Right.
I feel like there would be some problems.
It's also very much a CW Flash where we can't give anybody the powers until the last part of the last episode because we can't afford to actually do the special effects across the entire show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we agree on this one. You can skip it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is. Yeah. It is.
It's not even. It's not even funny to laugh at. It's not like Aquaman. Aquaman not good, but funny to watch.
Yeah,
I couldn't even laugh at this.
Well,
I couldn't find.
Yeah, that bad.
Right, it is literally the most unpleasant experience I have had watching an MCU property.
Oh,
and you know how Patrick feels.
Like Secret Invasion was. I mean, there's so many problems. Number one, that the opening credits were completely AI generated. I'm like, you guys killed yourself with that.
Tone deaf.
Yeah, and that they didn't change it after everyone after the first episode was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
What was the dang it? I'm so angry I lost what my other questions were.
It's catching.
Dang it, was that? Well, now I've totally lost what I was
That's
saying.
all we need. That's all we need.
I'm
for
so
how bad
infuriated.
It is,
but there is a story to do about kind of refugees and the ways in which that they are mistreated. Because the whole point is
wouldn't that be great?
The whole premise of the show is that, Fury promised the Skrull refugees he would find them a home, and he reveals in the movie, or in the show, he's like, yeah, after a couple of years, I realized that wasn't going to happen, and so I had to find a place for you here. Never telling them that,
despite the fact that they can live in Chernobyl.
Yeah,
I feel like you could find a planet.
Also,
that would be
as the screen junkies on his trailer points out, like Fury says, yeah, we couldn't find a planet for you, and they literally cut to Milky Way, 100 billion planets. Like, it feels like you didn't do your due diligence.
Right. With, for example, Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel. Flying through all of it.
Yeah, but take
him to nowhere.
Thor, like again, who's got all the worlds,
and the
right? It's ridiculous.
Again. The once again with the MCU, the villains in this series are not entirely wrong in that they have a right to be angry.
Yes.
And there is a story to be made about that.
Yeah.
It is not the story we get because we get, refugees are the villains.
Right, because Gravik is kind of an unthinkingly violent person who can only imagine eradicating the entire human race.
Not just that, he kills all of his own people for a reason I'm still trying to figure out.
Well, some of them were giving him a hard time.
Yeah, okay. The one says that you screwed up, and he immediately just skewers the guy.
See,
it's like
this is why you could be a better department chair. Sometimes you have to be ruthless. You can't just let people get away with contesting what you have to say.
I'm sure the history department is going to enjoy your reign of terror.
That's why I'm leaving after 5 fruitless,
Alan Nick Fury
years.
Austin, Alan Gravik Austin.
Yeah,
Are you a Skrull?
It was a bad movie.
And then there's the whole thing of they reveal in the first episode that Everett Ross has apparently been a Skrull.
Right.
For some time. We don't know how long. Like, have we ever seen the real Everett Ross?
Yeah.
And then Rhodey being revealed as a Skrull.
Yeah. He really got trashed.
So I'm just like, okay. Which I could understand if, so this is the way we get around Rhodey not being able to walk, because we obviously say he was replaced before he got injured. But no, they're making pretty clear that he got replaced after he was injured. So I'm like,
I feel like,
what does this exactly accomplish for us?
It accomplishes nothing, but I feel like you're getting so far in the weeds that our viewers might miss the larger point. Keeping the main thing the main thing. It was a terrible show.
I believe I'm just adding to the main thing with other subsidiary main things. But yeah, Secret Invasion was awful.
Okay, how about American Born Chinese? We should kind of wrap things up, but we should talk briefly about American Born Chinese. It was a little bit different from the graphic novel.
It's totally different. It's very different from the graphic novel.
Which means I can still teach the graphic novel, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I wanted to like it more than I think I did.
Yeah. Wait. But as a former LARPing enthusiast, I thought you'd really like the cosplay that was involved.
No.
No? Was it not authentic enough for you as a...
It felt like... Again, it felt like just because they could make a bigger story, I don't think they needed to.
I feel like...
Every time they delved into Bull Demon and the father's conflict, I was like, I don't care about the conflict. To me, it felt like the MCU-ification of American Born Chinese.
I think what they wanted to do was keep the structure of the novel, but tell different stories within the structure.
Yeah,
and I agree. But I don't think I found it as bad as you did.
I didn't find it bad, but I struggled with it.
Watchable.
Yeah, there's just, and I also didn't like the I can't think of the word.
I don't know.
The setup at the end, the cliffhanger. Didn't like the cliffhanger at the end. That we had to set up a season 2, apparently.
You're the one that can't remember.
I know. I was excited that I finally remembered the word.
Oh, you were excited.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's one thing I liked about the show. It had a kind of optimism in it that it's not at Heartstopper level, and it's not at Ted Lasso level.
Okay.
But it had a kind of optimism about what high school students might be that is, I think, relatively rare.
Yeah.
I didn't need a fight scene choreographed every episode.
Yeah.
But the occasional one doesn't bother me, and the final one, like at the soccer game where all the adults don't understand,
it felt to me that. I mean, I liked what the series did in terms of adapting the Chin Ki character.
It had to, right? Yeah.
And what I find really interesting is in terms of having Ki Hugh Kwan play that role, which really resonates kind of post Everything Everywhere All at Once and kind of how he...
And post Indiana Jones, right? If you think about
the
broad
but
arc
the
of
thing
his
is,
career.
the film American Born Chinese was already done prior to any of that.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like they were cashing in. A lot of people talked about it, like, oh, it really is kind of picking up on that. It was done before all of that.
Maybe we're having an
which
Asian
I find
American
really
moment.
interesting.
Which could be a good thing, right?
Yeah. So I liked what they did with that. I just all of the supernatural stuff that they kind of dialed up to 11. I just felt was a little too much for me.
I think they did that for you.
Yeah, it didn't work for me.
Okay.
I really one of the things I love about the graphic novel is it's such a simple, straightforward storyline.
Right. This is not that.
That they manage that works so well. It's such a well constructed
but there
graphic novel, and there's a lot of like I really like. Gosh, I'm forgetting. It's been so long since I watched it. The main character's name, Jin. No.
Yeah.
Is it Jin? Is Jin the main?
He's the
it's it's the closest to the. It's probably the part that's the closest to the original plot.
Right. But there are moments I think that are pretty good, like where the principal talks with the parents.
I love that. That was a good moment. I did like that
you see white liberal, quote unquote, concern being exposed for what it really is. Like, there were some moments. There were some moments,
but the whole didn't gel for me as much as I would have hoped.
So,
but I would not say it was bad. But yeah, it's a bit. I guess it's a bit too big of a storyline.
So
for me.
I think I had a Hamilton level insight into this.
Okay.
The actor Jamie Yao, who plays Freddie Wong, like so the sitcom that's within the show, the main character is Freddie Wong.
Oh yeah.
Wait a minute.
The guy that things always go bad for.
Oh, that's the character's name is Freddie Wong. The one
Freddie Wong.
That's who Ke Huy Quan plays.
Right, but the guy so he plays Jamie Yao, who plays Freddie Wong, because he plays the actor.
Correct. Yes.
Right?
Yes. Gotcha now.
So clearly, all of this is going to be revealed to be the script that Jamie Yao is writing. Like that's the big reveal at the end, is that it's in fact the story that he is writing is what's happening on screen. I hate to be a spoiler, but I just feel like that's coming.
I think so.
There was a lot of Spawn stuff in it. Do you think that was intentional?
There was a large because there was some DC stuff in it as well. I'm like,
but the Spawn stuff was especially
there were a couple things. Yeah, I forgot about that, but you're right that there were. I was like, that's an odd. Yeah.
So we got to get out of here. But one final point: the sitcom as a way to explore American life and values, I think, is a great idea. Mm-hmm. So I've got a fair or foul for you.
Okay.
Who do you agree with?
Oh, here we go.
Take one. The show speaks to the plurality and individuality of Asian Americans and people who are, quote unquote, fresh off the boat. The series is great. I told my immigrant grandparents about it, and they said it sounds really great. Please no hate. Or do you believe with this guy? Very bad and cringy. Huge disrespect to the Chinese culture, and at the same time purposely dig deeper a racist hole. It's not like this at all in real life.
I'm probably closer to the first one.
Okay, so you do have somewhat more positive views of what it's trying.
Well,
to do
and I think and this is not a critique of the film. I think of the show at all. I think a lot of the mythological aspects, I'm guessing those probably play better with a Chinese and Chinese American audience than they do for me.
That's possibly true.
I think they're like,
and it's okay that pop culture be created that speaks more to other people and less to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think so. It's possible that there's levels on which the show works that I just am not able to perceive.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I kind of wish they had kept it to a smaller story than they did.
I can see that as a fair critique. I think it's worth watching.
Oh, it's definitely worth watching.
Okay, all right. So we agree. I think we need to wrap things up. Hope is starting to kind of like slump over in her chair. Like I've been watching Hope and Zach as we've like crossed the hour mark, and they're kind of like sinking lower, ever lower into their chairs. Like they clearly have reached a point of no return.
Yeah. Well, they're trapped in the room. They can't take a break like our listeners.
Right. Exactly.
Midway through.
But I'm sure for listeners who are looking at us almost an hour and 40 minutes in, they're going to say, you know what they're going to say? Not this is too much, but thank you. Thank you very much for giving us this. You know, we've missed you this summer, and now we
may have forgotten you exist.
This beautiful summer wrap,
exactly
that pulls it all back together and gets us ready for the fall season.
That's right, fall season.
Woohoo! It's coming.